Hello and welcome. It's 10 a.m. on Friday, the 27th of February. You're tuned in to our mid-morning newscast here on ARIRANG TV. It's great to have you with us on this beautiful but very chilly day here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broome. Let's take a look at today's headlines. The presidential office says it will announce President Park's new chief of staff later today. The move comes after she accepted the resignation of her former top aide last week. In a landmark ruling, Korea's Constitutional Court strikes down a law banning adultery, saying it infringed upon personal freedom. Plus, the Islamic State militant known as Jihadi John is identified as 26-year-old Mohammed Emwazi, a former university student from a middle-class London family. Our top story this morning, President Park will name her new chief of staff this afternoon. Her spokesperson, Min Kyung-uk, told reporters this morning that the announcement will come later in the day. The president is known to have accepted her chief of staff, Kim Ki-chun's resignation before last week's Lunar New Year holiday. Speculation has long brewed that Kim would step down to take responsibility for the discord within the presidential office that followed a controversial document leak. Now, possible candidates to replace Kim include Korea Racing Authority Chairman Hyun Myung-kwan, former Korea International Trade Association Chairman Han Dok-soo, and former Yonsei University President Jung Chang-yong. Now, in the last of our three-part series looking at what's ahead for President Park in her third year in office, today we're going to focus on foreign policy. And Korea is enjoying improved ties with China and the US, but has made little progress on inter-Korean relations, and relations with Japan have gone very sour. For a look at what went right and what has gone wrong in diplomacy and the challenges that lay ahead, here's our Hwang Sang-hee.
A stronger alliance with the United States and a budding friendship with China are two of President Park Geun-hye's most notable diplomatic achievements. The signing of a free trade agreement deepened Seoul's economic cooperation with Beijing, and the two neighbors have opened up military channels. But experts say South Korea may find itself in a difficult position between the two great powers.
And I would say right now, the missile defense issue and the question of THAAD deployment in South Korea is one place where you can watch this tension really bubbling right up to the surface.
Despite President Park's pledge to improve inter-Korean ties, tensions remain high. Some blame her lack of flexibility for fizzled momentum, like last year's reunions for war-separated families and a surprise visit to the South by a high-level North Korean delegation. Even the unification minister recently admitted that the Park administration's signature trust politique, which focuses on building trust with the North through dialogue and cooperation, failed to make any significant progress. But there are doubts that a fresh approach will be any better as long as Pyongyang maintains its belligerence.
She can try some things to elicit that reciprocity from the North, but until they have a more cooperative attitude, it's very difficult to achieve positive outcomes.
Another task is getting Japan to fully acknowledge its wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women. With relations with Tokyo at their worst, experts say Seoul should seek practical cooperation in areas like security and the economy. Since foreign affairs is an area that requires policies with a long-term perspective, experts say it's too early to judge whether the Park administration's diplomacy has been a success or a failure. Hwang Sang-hee, ARIRANG News.
Korea and the Czech Republic elevated their relationship to a strategic partnership during summit talks in Seoul on Thursday. This comes as the two countries celebrate 25 years of diplomatic ties. Choi Sun reports.
The Czech Republic is now Korea's 20th strategic partner, a sign that over the past 25 years, the two sides have recognized the rising importance of their political and economic cooperation and that their people have a lot in common. On Thursday, Korea and the East Central European nations signed 3 deals to reflect their strengthened partnership, agreeing to periodically hold talks between their foreign ministries and to better cooperate on defense and security. Seoul and Prague will work together in the areas of railway and highway construction, which will in effect help Korean firms expand their business in Europe. There will also be more exchanges of dialogue, data, and people in the areas of cybersecurity, trade and investment, nuclear energy, culture, and education. According to data by the Korean government, trade volume between the two countries reached $2.4 billion last year, and Korean firms invested an accumulated $1.5 billion until the end of 2013. The Czech Prime Minister, who arrived with a large business delegation, promoted the soundness of the Czech economy and its favorable business environment. President Park, one of whose diplomatic goals is to promote and secure external support for North Korea and unification policies, certainly brought the matter to the table. Referring to how the Czech Republic witnessed that reforms and opening up its market were the only ways to rebuild the economy and improve quality of life, she said the Czech case could send a clear message to North Korea to choose the right path to change. The Czech Prime Minister then officially invited President Park to visit Prague in the near future to carry on the momentum for bolstering their cooperation set by his visit. Choi Yu-sun, Arirang News.
Korea's top court has revoked a 60-year-old adultery law under which cheating husbands and wives could be jailed, saying it's unconstitutional. Striking down the law on Thursday, the Constitutional Court said preserving marriage was up to the free will of the people. Shin Se-min reports.
Having an affair will no longer be a criminal offense. That's the ruling issued by Korea's Constitutional Court on Thursday, following 4 previous appeals, the last being in 2008. It's based on the argument that the law infringes on an individual's right to privacy and that extramarital affairs should be regulated by civil law, not criminal law. The decision has raised a question of whether some 5,500 people charged with infidelity since 2008 will file for a retrial or compensation. And one uncertainty that's been expressed is that affairs could become more prevalent.
Adultery is still illegal. It is still a civil case. The criminal court is leaving the matter to the parties directly involved.
The law had made marital infidelity a criminal offense punishable by up to 2 years in prison, but only a small percentage of those deemed guilty were actually jailed. And in recent years, enforcement of the law also waned as charges were often dropped. Kim Kwang-sam, a former Seoul district prosecutor, believes that abolishing the law was a move in the right direction that won't necessarily lead to a surge in extramarital affairs.
Other nations that have struck down anti-cheating laws, such as France or Germany, didn't experience a major social breakdown after decriminalizing adultery.
As the ruling largely reflects a rapidly changing Korea breaking away from the traditional conservative norms, experts say it was a necessary move for private freedoms. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Now, on the second day of a 3-day questioning session at the National Assembly on Thursday, lawmakers grilled the newly appointed Prime Minister and government officials on the economy. The concerns ranged from snowballing household debt to welfare program funding. Park Ji-won reports.
Lawmakers fired questions at government officials on the administration's economic plans for tackling pressing issues, such as skyrocketing household debt, deepening income polarization, and stagnant economic growth. In the hot seat was the new Prime Minister Lee Wan-gu and 8 others, including the nation's finance, trade, and science ministers.
Korea's household debt currently stands at some $993 billion. Consumption has been frozen and income levels haven't increased. Households are facing the burden of higher living expenses, while companies have stopped investing. The economy has stopped its virtuous cycle of growth.
For the past 2 years, the Park Geun-hye administration has attempted to strengthen the economy and will keep pushing the necessary reforms forward. I expect we'll have visible results soon.
Economists say they agree with the government's strategy of focusing on reforms to revive the economy, but say the timing was a little late.
The administration should have focused on reforms from the very start of its term, because reforms can bear fruit in the long term. As the administration now has a low approval rating, it could face obstacles to its reforms.
The government deficit and the administration's pledge to expand welfare without raising taxes were other issues criticized at the assembly. The session will continue until Friday, and the last day's focus will be on social and cultural issues. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Now, in a move that has local residents and environmentalists up in arms, Korea's nuclear watchdog has decided to extend the operational lifespan of the 32-year-old Walsong-1 nuclear reactor, which is located on the country's southeast coast. The Nuclear Safety and Security Commission's decision means the 678-megawatt reactor will go back online for the first time since it was powered down in late 2012. Following 3 decades of commercial operation. Now, 7 members of the Commission voted in favour of the extension. The other 2 members boycotted the voting in protest. With this decision made now, the state power operator is expected to put the reactor back into operation sometime in April. A senior U.S. official has stressed that a controversial U.S. missile defense system that may or may not be deployed in South Korea is purely defensive and would be solely designated to counter ballistic missile threats coming out of North Korea. Speaking in Tokyo this week, Frank Rose, U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Defense Policy and Verification Operations, said the so-called THAAD system would only be used to defend against short and medium-range regional ballistic missiles from Pyongyang. Rose added that Russia and China should not feel threatened by the deployment of such a system potentially to the Korean Peninsula. His comments come amid rising complaints from Moscow and Beijing. They say the deployment of THAAD to South Korea would threaten their national security. North Korea has decided to up the salaries of workers at the Kaesong Inter-Korean factory complex by around 5%. South Korea, which was not consulted prior to the decision, says Pyongyang's move is unacceptable. Connie Kim has more.
In a unilateral move, North Korea has decided to raise its workers' wages at the Inter-Korean Joint Industrial Complex in Kaesong starting from next month. Seoul's Unification Ministry said Thursday that Pyongyang sent a fax message stating that the minimum wage for North Korean workers would be raised to $74 from the current $70.35. Additionally, it also plans to collect overtime payments as Social Security. Since opening in 2004, the Kaesong Industrial Complex has been a symbol of inter-Korean economic cooperation, but Pyongyang's latest action has disappointed Seoul.
The South Korean government is calling on North Korea to improve current systems at the Kaesong Industrial Complex, such as negotiating wages through mutual consultation.
South Korean companies at the joint complex also say a wage settlement is crucial, as a hike will likely burden their management systems. Seoul has offered to meet next month to discuss the issue further, but North Korea declined, only making matters worse. Although the South Korean government says it'll continue to push for a meeting, analysts doubt it'll happen considering the timing. South Korea-U.S. joint military drills are set to kick off next week, despite strong opposition from the north. Experts say that Pyongyang's intention lies in getting an upper hand over Seoul in making decisions at the Kaesong complex, which has been a significant source of income for the north since its opening. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Now, international news and the big story of the day. The infamous Islamic State executioner dubbed Jihadi John has been identified. For more, we connect to Eunice Kim at the news centre. So, Eunice, now we know the masked man with the British accent was raised and educated in London.
That's right, Mark. Mohammed Emwazi is his name. He was born in Kuwait but raised in a middle-class suburb of West London. This according to the Washington Post, which first broke the story yesterday, later confirmed by unnamed U.S. government sources. Jihadi John has in many ways become the face of IS foreign fighters after fronting a series of beheading videos, starting with that of American journalist James Foley in August of last year, followed by those of American journalist Stephen Sotloff and British aid worker David Haynes, among others. Kuwaiti-born Emwazi is described as a young man in his mid-20s who moved to the UK at the age of 6. And here is a picture of him as a boy from the Daily Mail, later studying computer science at the University of Westminster. Many who knew him are shocked. The soft-spoken man is the merciless killer behind the mask. Friends told the Washington Post that Emwazi became radicalized after graduation. They described an incensed man after he was interrogated by British intelligence officials when he was on his way to a safari trip to Tanzania.
Yeah, still waiting to see a picture of his full face as an adult. I'm sure that will come out soon. But the stream of foreign recruits seems to be growing to groups such as Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, as a group of Canadian teenagers has apparently made the journey to Turkey, where presumably they'll head into Syria.
Right. Local media, including the Montreal Daily La Presse, is reporting that 6 Canadian men and women aged 18 and 19 had left for Turkey back on January 16th. Authorities there believe they did have the intention to join the Islamic State group in Syria, though it is still unclear whether they actually reached their final destination. Meanwhile, on the case of the 3 Brooklyn men arrested in the U.S. for supporting the extremist group that we first told you about yesterday, court documents show that there had been a discussion of hijacking a commercial plane and diverting it to IS territory so that the extremist group would gain a plane, Mark.
And Eunice, the brutality, of course, continues on the ground at the hands of these IS militants against people, but also against priceless historical relics as well.
Yeah, that's right. A constant flow of heartbreaking news. Syria and Iraq are, of course, home to many priceless historical relics, and one of the group's source of income is said to come from selling those looted antiquities. Now, a new video has surfaced online that purportedly shows IS militants destroying such relics at a Mosul museum in Iraq, which houses artifacts believed to date back to the 7th century BC. A man in the video says Prophet Muhammad had ordered Muslims to get rid of the statues, calling them idols from the time of the Assyrians and the Akkadians. Meanwhile, archaeologists are saying that the damage done is just simply incalculable. IS fighters have also burned down libraries in Mosul this month, holding tens of thousands of rare manuscripts and books.
Yeah, shocking images. Well, thank you very much, Eunice, and we'll see you back with more updates at noon.
See you then.
Now, Korea's tech giant Samsung Electronics says it's freezing salaries this year as the firm struggles to bounce back from plunging profits. In a statement on Thursday, Samsung said the wage fix is to strengthen its competitiveness, given that business conditions are not optimistic. The firm's mobile business, its main cash cow, saw its profits drop more than 60% on year in the fourth quarter of last year, with overall net profit falling more than 20% on year in 2014. Samsung's pay freeze is the first in 6 years, but will not apply to individual incentives or bonuses. And Samsung's logo will no longer be emblazoned on Chelsea's famous blue football jersey from next season. The English Premier League leaders confirmed Thursday that it has signed Japanese tyre manufacturer Yokohama as its new official shirt partner. Reports say the new 5-year deal could potentially be worth more than $300 million to the West London club. It's believed to be more than double Chelsea's previous contract with Samsung. The Korean firm has been Chelsea's shirt sponsor since 2006. Now, you'd better watch out because Apple will host an event on March 9th that's expected to announce the highly anticipated details of its smartwatch. Invitations to the surprise event simply say "Spring Forward." Now, that phrase and the event's date hint at the official unveiling of the Apple Watch, as Americans will be turning their watches an hour forward for the start of daylight savings on March 8th, the day before. Key details such as full pricing information and battery specifications remain unknown, but the watch is scheduled to be launched in early April. Now, the smartwatch, the Apple Watch, was first revealed by Apple last September during its iPhone 6 launch.
And TGI Friday, everyone, as we kick things off with the 2015 Honda LPGA Thailand, which kicked off its first round of play on Thursday as the Koreans look to continue their dominance in the 2015 season. But the Koreans struggle a bit overall on the first day as Brittany Lang, Stacey Lewis, and Yanni Sang take the lead at 6 under par, while only 2 Koreans in Lee Mi-rim and Amy Yang make the top 10, shooting a 4 under par tie for 4th place. Meanwhile, Kim Hyo-joo made her season debut in the LPGA, struggled shooting an even par, and is tied for 40th place. Now, even though the 2-time Olympic gold medalist Lee Sang-hwa might not be competing in the National Winter Sports Festival, many had their eyes on Park Seung-hee, who converted from short track to speed skating just last October. And she didn't disappoint during the 1,000-meter event as she finishes with a final time of 1 minute 20.14 seconds, good for first place overall. Now, despite the fact that she just recently converted to speed skating, it's her second gold medal overall in speed skating, but her first gold medal during the National Winter Sports Festival, as she hopes to continue her success leading up to the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Games. Now, Park Ji-sung is flat-footed, but still ran like he did and did a great job on the pitch. And because of that extra mile he went to become a great footballer, he gets the respect that he deserves. Now, Squawka.com, an English-based football website, had an article talking about some of the best Asian footballers to play the EPL. And in the same article, they listed Park Ji-sung, calling him arguably the best Asian player to play in the EPL. Meanwhile, the article also named Swansea City midfielder Ki Sung-young as they praised his passing skills and his 89% successful passing rate, which is ranked amongst the best in the league. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Well, the last cold snap ahead of spring will continue today. It brought down the sensory temperatures to below -10 this morning here in Seoul. And still, it feels like -9, and daytime highs will be a few notches lower than yesterday. So dress warmly before heading out. The winds are adding a chill to the air. Though the air quality is good across the nation and mostly sunny skies will be featured all day long, but that sun will not not boost up the highs that much, as the daytime high here in the capital will only rise to 3, and Daegu and Gwangju peak at 5, and Busan will top out at 7 this afternoon. And it seems like Jeju Island and Daejeon should see a high of 5 and 3, and Dokdo only make it to 1. But the cold will ease up tomorrow. The daytime highs will rebound to the seasonal averages, but we are looking at chances of mix of rain and snow on Sunday morning. So bear that in mind and plan accordingly for your upcoming weekend. That's all for Korea, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's all we have for now. Plenty more stories online, and it's also worth checking out our smartphone app for all the latest news and Arirang TV programs. We'll be back with our next newscast at noon Korea time, so until then, goodbye.